Back to the Voice, the big story. Months and months of speculation, of course, all this discussion about what the words would look like. Today we saw the Prime Minister released the question publicly. Joining me now for his analysis of what the words actually mean in legal detail, Chris Merritt, Legal Affairs Contributor at The Australian, Vice President of the Rule of Law Institute. Chris, thank you. Right. Finally, we get something to debate in some detail about the legislation, because not only did we see the words, but we had these so-called guiding principles also put out there. Give us your thoughts on what you heard today.
Well, I think this has been a masterclass in how to hobble an attempt to get constitutional recognition of Indigenous people into the Constitution. It's a green light now for people to vote no. The problems with the preliminary form of words have been well known. We've had them on the record for 8 months, and none of those problems have been addressed. In fact, by going ahead with something very, very close to the original preliminary wording, the government, the Prime Minister, has signed off on this. And to my view, it's unworkable. It's completely unworkable. It would mean that all ministers, all decision makers in the federal public service would be subject to litigation unless they made it possible for the Voice to provide a view on every decision and every law, every proposed law. Now, that would mean holding up decision making, providing confidential material to the Voice, decision makers sitting on their hands and waiting for the Voice to reach a decision. It would cost a fortune. There'd need to be a new layer of bureaucracy. The consequences for decision making, for public administration, would be adverse, to say the least. And that's before you get into the problems of principle. Because what's happened now is the government is proposing to undermine the core principle that underpins egalitarian democracy in this country, and that is equality of citizenship. It would mean that a representative group representing one group by race would have an advantage over all other citizens. They'd have a second way of influencing public policy. Now, if you look at international conventions, that would be improper, a breach of treaty obligations, unless it's temporary. We're not proposing to make this temporary. We're proposing to put it in the Constitution forever. The idea is that if you want to ease racial disadvantage by proactive measures, yes, you can do that, but they must be temporary. Now, that implies that something like the Voice, even in the form that we've currently got, should not go into the Constitution. It should be part of statute. I think it's not going to fly when ordinary people have a good look at it. And this is tragic, because most people, I expect, would be very much in favour of a reasonable form of constitutional recognition for Indigenous people.
But not like this. I mean, I made the point at the top of the show, you know, this is not just advice to the government. This is advice the government is basically forced to take. Otherwise, they can't get things done. They've only got a 3-year term. They'll be in and out of the High Court. I mean, I made the point earlier, you know, both sides, the Voice action and the Commonwealth's action to defend, they'll both be paid for by taxpayers in the High Court. We'll be tied up, you know, for literally years in very litigious action. Aboriginal people and the laws impacting them should, because we are an equal country, affect everyone. Everything that might impact Aboriginal people will be absolutely every issue we have. So how do you get into a situation where people like yourself, Greg Craven, the Jesuit law expert Frank Brennan, have all said, and you're all supportive, or certainly the other two are, very supportive of the Voice in principle, but they've been saying this is not workable, don't do it, and they've done it anyway?
Well, I think that's a question for the government. They have shown by their own actions that they're aware that there are problems with this proposal. You've got to remember Mark Dreyfus went along to the referendum working group and suggested changes. Now, it's pretty clear he was trying to ease the impact on the executive of this proposal. And he definitely got rolled. But the government's gone ahead, despite those concerns, but which recognises there's a real problem, and they're expecting the community to simply sign off. It's bizarre.
Chris Merritt, I have to leave it there. Pauline Hanson champing at the bit, but thank you for your time. I am sure we're going to keep talking about this all the way through till the end of the year. Thank you.